Hello everyone, I'm Andrea Nicole. I'm Limbo from Btvted 3D, and for today, let me show you how to roast up coffee beans.
A 9.5-inch aluminum pan. For best results, no matter which pan you'd like to use, I recommend preheating your pan, just like you'd preheat your oven. I've had this pan preheating on medium heat for about 5 minutes, and using my infrared thermometer, I can see the average temperature of the pan is about 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which has worked out well for me with this pan. Today I'm roasting about 200 grams of one of our fully washed organic Colombia beans from the Tolima region. Let's pour those in, and I'm going to start my timer. I recommend using a timer if you have one. It just helps with keeping track of your roast a lot easier. Now, as soon as I add my beans to the hot pan, I'm immediately tossing the pan as much as possible so beans don't get scorched right away. This large amount of movement right at the beginning seems to help the beans acclimate to the hot pan a little more gently. Now I'm going to start steadily stirring. This heat is applied to coffee beans. It undergoes 3 phases. First, the drying phase. Here the beans turn from pale green to pale yellow as the beans absorb heat. During this phase, we're rapidly ramping up the heat while doing our best to distribute it evenly among the beans. That means I'll increase the heat a notch from medium to medium high. You can see I'm using the metal whisk to move the beans in concentric circles, and the goal is to simply make sure that no bean stays in contact with the pan for more than a few seconds. We don't want them to scorch, but to gently take on that heat. I'm not stirring crazy fast or anything. This is a really comfortable speed for me to maintain throughout the roast. As we move through the drying phase, let's talk about our batch size, or how much coffee you choose to roast with each batch. Your batch size will vary depending on the size of your pan, but I had the best results with 150 to 200 grams, or about 5.5 to 7 ounces with this particular pan. Choosing the right batch size can help quite a bit, and I would recommend starting with just enough beans to cover the bottom of your pan fully. You'll notice that every so often I give the beans a strong few tosses in the pan. And this is intended to give my right arm a break for a few seconds, and also to make absolutely sure all the beans are being rotated. How frequently you do this is entirely up to you. Alright, let's go ahead and speed things up a little bit. Once the beans turn pale yellow, which we call the yellow point or dry end point, we pass into the second roasting phase and they begin to start to turn brown. Some roasters even call the second phase the browning phase, though it's also known as the caramelization or Maillard phase. If you're a chef, you're already familiar with the idea behind caramelization. This phase is all about the beans undergoing chemical changes to make them taste like the coffee we all know and love. Now at this point, it's just as important throughout the rest of the roast to continue to apply the heat evenly by stirring the beans and giving them tosses every now and then. But we can go ahead and remove some of that heat that we had early on, because the beans start to gain their own momentum and they won't need nearly as much to push them onward. So at this point, I generally decrease the heat by a notch, and since we're at medium-high heat, I'll drop it to about a medium. Let's skip forward a little bit. During this phase, you'll start to see the chaff separate from the coffee beans. Chaff is super light and will simply fly out of the pan, so if you're roasting outside, there's really no need to worry about it. Just keep giving your pan a few tosses every now and then, and a light breeze will come along and take care of most of it. Later on, you'll see when we're done roasting that the rest of it comes off during the cooling phase. Alright, let's skip forward to the interesting part. Soon we'll begin to hear the first crack, which is the most important event in coffee roasting. You see, moisture is left behind in the beans, and it eventually boils about 30 seconds to a minute. Cooling our beans quickly is really important because we want to stop the roast right away. We don't want to keep going. The simplest way to cool your beans quickly is to get 2 bowls or colanders and pour the beans back and forth between them for a few minutes. This will allow the air to cool your beans and has the added benefit of letting any breeze take care of the remaining chaff. Once your beans are cool enough to handle, you're all done. Now, I always recommend letting your beans rest for a few days before you brew them for best results, but hey, if you're not that patient, there's nothing wrong with brewing them the next morning. And there we have it. Now, of course, just like we talked about, our beans aren't going to be perfectly even, but they're going to taste amazing. And if you like that, just wait till you try roasting in a dedicated home coffee roaster. Your beans will look just as good as professional